All right, good evening. We are sponsored this week by Rabbi Aaron and Evelyn Kislasi in honor of the upcoming marriage of their daughter, Ilana to Joey Brescher of Los Angeles in T-minus 2 days. Mazel tov. Hashem. We are at the two dots, which is, the line begins Mishum, the ends Vechule. Mahu lelech l'sham. What is the question? The question the Gemara wants to know is, the Mishnah wants to know is, can you go to one of these locations that is worshiping, that is celebrating a festival of Avodah Zara?
I'll say no.
So Tana Rabbanan and Rabbi learned. So let's see how we do, right? That's a prediction. Ir sheyesh ba'avodas kochavim, aser likonos lesocha, right? If you have a city that has Avodah Zara in it, so it is prohibited to go into it. Velo mitocha li'ir acheres, plus you're not allowed to go from that city to another city as to another city as well, because there's maris ayin. People are going to see that you went from a prohibited location. You were doing something prohibited. So therefore,
you can take the back alley if it's possible.
I guess yes. Try to walk around, not go directly. Div Rabbi Meir, that's what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi v'chachamim omrim, the chachamim say kol zman shaderech miyuchedes lo samakom aser. That's only if there's a designated road that goes to that city, right? Then there's no choice. Everybody knows that's where you were. But as you said, Yehuda, if you've got back roads and it's not the only way to get to that certain place, then it's mutter. Then it's permitted to be able to go on that way because it is not clear that you are going to do something that is prohibited there. Okay. Yashav lokot bifnei avodas kochavim. Let's say somebody's got a thorn, right? He's got a thorn stuck in his into his foot. And there's avodas kochavim, there's an idol that's right there. Lo yishchevi lena. You shouldn't bend down and pick it up. Mipnei shenira kimishtachave la'avodas kochavim. Because then, if you do that, it looks like you are bending down and worshiping Avodah Zara.
Which is maris ayin.
Huh? That's where we're going to get into these maris ayin cases. That's exactly what we're into. Maris ayin is the prohibition against doing something that looks like you're going to do an avera. Okay, and that's what we're going to get to in a moment.
Maris ayin is the prohibition, or Maris ayin is the reason why there is a...
Maris ayin is the rabbinic enactment, right? That we cannot do something, cannot do this thing because it looks wrong. Correct. Even though it's not wrong. All you're doing is taking a thorn out, right? But it looks wrong, therefore it is wrong. V'im eino nireh, right? If it doesn't look, if it sounds like the word we're using with the nireh means if you're not seen. Right, if nobody sees you, then it's mutter, then it's okay.
But especially
so, if someone no one sees you and they're walking past and they manage to see you doing it when they're walking,
then you'd be in trouble, right?
Exactly.
But if you're sure nobody sees you, it sounds like it's mutter.
Especially in today's day and age, you can never be certain that nobody can see you.
Yes.
Like that was probably true all the time, but especially now.
But let's wait till the end of the Gemara because we'll see that it gets. We're not going to leave it here. Right? Yeah. So if it bothers you, that's okay. Because the Gemara will not bother you when we get to the end.
It doesn't bother me.
Let's say he drops his money in front of an idol. Right? Lo yishchav yitleim. Can't bend down and pick it up.
That's an ultimate test.
Mibnei shenira kimishtachave lavodas kochavim, because it looks like you're bowing down to the idol. Vim eno nira, and it seems like again, if you are not seen, mutter, then it's okay. Ma'ayan hamoshech lifnei avodas kochavim. You've got a spring that is some water that is there in front of the idol. Lo yishcha v'yishta. You cannot bend down and get a drink from it. Mibnei shenira kimishtach v'lelos kochavim. It looks like you're bowing down to an idol.
You ask someone who's worshiping, fill it up for you?
No, because then again we still have a problem of
doing business with them.
Well, we're not even doing business, right? But you could, if that person is, if somebody's just getting the water, is it a lifnei? If you're getting them to do it for you, is it a lifnei iver problem because they're violating a maris ayin sort of a situation? In any event, the answer is right now, don't do it. We'll get to a moment here. If nobody can see you, then mutter, then it's okay. Partzufos hamekalchin mayim lekrochim. So let's say you've got these pipes, right? So they've had these pipes that would bring water. That would have these. They had these aqueducts that would bring water to the villages. So, lo yaniach piv al pihem v'yishta. You can't put your mouth on the pipe in order to drink, not because it's gross. Mipnei shenir kiminashik lavodas kochavim. They would put idolatry around the openings, like they're carved little carvings
If
of.
you want to bend down to have a drink, it's like you're bowing down
And you're kissing the Avodah Zara because you're putting your mouth on the
faucet. Or whatever.
faucet, which was, I guess, part of the idol or whatever it was.
Also because like bloodsuckers and whatever.
Well, that we're going to see later on.
Those
Yep.
Vampires. So
Yep. We're talking about. We're going to see that you're ahead of us, right? The issue about bloodsuckers and things. But hang on a second. Kayotzebo. Similarly, lo yanich piv al silon v'yishta. Right. You also can't put yourself on the partsufos. These were I guess they had.
Faces.
The first one was the partsufos and mekalchin mayim. They had faces, right? They were shooting water from the fountains, right? This one is al piv. You can't put your mouth onto the silon. The silon was a water trench that was on the ground. Okay, so you can't put your mouth on that. Maybe because that's dangerous. That's where the bloodsuckers come in, right? Because there could be bugs and dangerous parasites.
Damaging stuff.
Right, parasites and things in the water. You don't bend down get the water from the ground.
Dangerous things, glass, whatever.
Yeah, so don't go there.
Yeah.
Okay, my eno nira. What does it mean when we said if you're not seen? We said it's okay. All of those things you're allowed to bow down as long as you're not seen. If it means like I would translating it, that it means that you are not seen. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, whenever the Chachamim said that there's a prohibition against doing something because it looks like you're doing the wrong thing, it's even prohibited in private. Right? So therefore, it's as everybody was worried about, right? That well, you don't know who's noticing you. You don't know who's around it. So and also if you do it in private, you might become used to doing it. You'll do it in public.
You do it in the stall where no one sees you.
Correct. So therefore, it's prohibited. Even if something is maris ayin, it's always prohibited, no matter what the circumstance is, even if it's in private. Hence, to say that you're allowed to bend down and pick up your money because nobody sees you is not correct. Because if you can't do it in public, you can't do it in private either. Ella ema im eno nir mutter. What we meant to say was, if the way that you're bending over to pick it up doesn't look like you're bowing down to the idol, then it's permissible, right? If you, let's say, instead of
Not on Shabbos.
Not on Shabbos, right? We're not. Well, you wouldn't be carrying your money on Shabbos, I would presume, in the first place.
Nobody
right?
saw money on the ground.
You could not get it in front of an idol. It would be worse, right? Okay, utsricha, and I need all of these cases. Okay, so now we understand what it means, right? So let's say, for example, somebody turned around and put his back to the idol, and then he crouched down and he picked it up, but it didn't look like he was bowing down. It's clear that he was picking up the item. Then it is permissible.
Some people when before they bow, they crouch just to make it easier for them to bow.
Then that would be no good, right? You can't do it in a way. You have to make sure that you do it in such a way that looks very clear that you are not bowing down. If you can do that, pull that off, then great.
For example, is that what he's saying, to crouch first?
Well, he's saying if you crouch first, let's say you go down on one knee first in order to go pick it up, that might look very suspicious, right?
It looks like you're about to bow to the idol.
You'd have to think about how exactly to do it. I'm figuring that you turn around with your back to the idol and something like that, and you go.
That'll stab you on the back.
Right? Idols do not stab, usually. Utsricha. Now, why do I have so many examples? This Brisa gives me so many examples. It talks about money. It talks about the water. It talks about that. Why do I need so many examples? The answer is Di'itana coats. If you started with the thorn case, Mishum de'efshar lemezel kame ulim mishakle. The reason is, right, you'd say, well, just walk a little bit further. Go off to the side of the road and you can take it out there. You don't lose anything by waiting. Just wait 1 second. Don't do it right there. Aval mos, but your money, delo efshar, it's not possible for you to go someplace else and pick it up. The money's here. So therefore, lo, I might think that the halacha is not that way. V'itana mos, it's pasuk, so the Brisa tells me, no, the halacha is the same way. You also can't pick up the money. If it told me about the money, demamona, so that would be because it's just money. Aval kots Zara, but if it was a thorn, which hurts, so then Amalo, I would say, okay, maybe the thorn is permissible because it hurts. So therefore, no, the answer is, it's no, you can't do it in both ways, both circumstances. V'tanahani tarti, and if you told me in both of those circumstances I couldn't do it, mishum deleka sakana, because there's no danger involved in these situations, right? So you lose some money. So you'll have to walk a little bit, your thorn will hurt. Aval, Mayan deika sakana, right? But if I don't drink from this water, it could be dangerous. Dilo shasi mayas.
It's called drinking hot outside. You need some water.
That's correct. If I don't drink, I might dehydrate. So therefore, maybe I could. Emalol, maybe the halacha would not be this way. So tzricha, so therefore I need that as well. And partsufos lomali, mishum de kaboy lemisne kayotzebo. And as far as the case of the partsufos, right, where it said that you can't drink from these, we had this other case where you're not allowed to drink out of these fountains, right, because you'll put your mouth on it or whatever. Why did we bring that case in? That's not a case of not bowing down right here. That's a new case, but that's similar because we also wanted to teach that lo yanich piv al gave hasilon v'yishta. We wanted to tell people about putting their mouths in the water that is on the ground. We wanted to add that case in.
Because of blood sucking.
Because mipnei sakana, because it's dangerous. And my sakana, what is this danger? Aluka. This aluka is some kind of parasites or this. He says it's a blood sucking leech that would get into the water. And if you put your mouth onto the pipe, right, you'll just suck up whatever's coming down the pipe.
The bites, are they fatal or just?
Eventually, I suppose, right? It says yistak. It's a sakana. Sakana is usually eventually life and death. Yeah, it's dangerous that you might get one because it will be life and death, right? Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis learned lo yishta odem mayim min haros. Right, you're not supposed to drink from rivers, v'lo min hagamim, or from lakes. Right, these are gathered, non-moving water sources. Like agam is an agam. Agam is like agam is like a marsh. Right, usually like a marsh or a swamp.
Of course, if you're going camping,
more still water. Yeah.
If you go camping and you need water, why do you get water from the lake and then?
The answer is, we'll finish the sentence and then you'll see what you do. Right, so you can't drink from the river or from the marsh. Lo bipiv, not by putting your mouth into the water. V'lo biyado achas, or by using just one hand, like this, splashing it up.
But 2 hands.
Right, but you do it 2 hands.
Yeah,
so as if you scoop it up 2 hands,
then you could look
at the water and see what's exactly. That's right.
Or if you put it in your filter.
If you put it in your filter, then you're good, right? The idea is don't just like scoop it up, put your mouth to the water. Right, exactly. See what you're drinking first. Okay. Vim shasa, and if you do drink that way, damo barosho, you are responsible for the consequences, right? Your blood is on your head, meaning you're responsible for the consequences. Mipnei sakana, because it's dangerous. My sakana, what's the danger? Sakanas aluka. Again, this is the blood-sucking leeches that were in the water. It had parasites there. Mesayeh leila Rabbi Chanina. This supports what Rabbi Chanina said. Damar Rabbi Chanina, as Rabbi Chanina said, habolea nima shel mayim muter lahachim lo chamim b'Shabbos. If somebody swallows, anema is this blood-sucking leech, right? So if someone swallows one on Shabbos, so since it's dangerous, you're allowed to warm up water for him on Shabbos in order to be able to try to, I guess they would drink hot water afterwards to try to get it out, to wash it out.
Or if that doesn't work, call hot salah.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, they didn't have hot salah.
Means boiling water before drinking it.
So this sounds like you're drinking it. You're warming up the hot water after it. I was boiling it beforehand would have been better.
Much better.
Okay, right? But the thing is,
it will kill the leech.
Yes, but they wouldn't allow you to boil the water before you drink it on Shabbos, right? Unless you were going to die of thirst.
A hot plate.
Well, you still can't take cold water, correct? Cold liquid, and heat up on Shabbos, right?
It has to be cooked enough.
And it has to still be, and when it comes to liquid, it still has to be hot, right? Okay, so good. Anyway, Umaisa be'echad, there was once a story of what happened with one person, Shabola Nima Shel Mayim, that he swallowed one of these water leeches, V'hita Rabbi Nechemia lachim lo chamim b'Shabbos, and Rabbi Nechemia, in fact, did permit him to boil water and warm up water on Shabbos.
So once you get the permit, you start boiling the water, and the Nima's already eating away at his insides.
That's correct.
How do you know? You had experience with you had one of those before in your body?
No, I was listening the whole time.
So ad hachi v'hachi. So the issue is, while it's eating up your insides, while you're waiting for the water to boil, right? So what do? Amar Rav Huna, breder of Yeshua. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, said, Ligma chala, you should be drinking some vinegar, right? Drink vinegar while you're waiting, because that'll kill. Right? It'll be uncomfortable in there, whatever, and then you drink the hot water afterwards, right? Okay, so
it'll be uncomfortable for you and the bug.
That is correct. Uncomfortable. Amar Rav Idi bar Abin. Rav Idi bar Abin says, Hayman de bala zibura. So if somebody swallows a wasp, Mechaya lo chai, you're not going to live. Sorry. It's not going to...
Oh, because the stinger still remains.
Apparently, yes.
He's still able to sting.
Right.
Wow.
So that's not...
It feels like a lot longer than
If you give the wasp a bris, it won't sting you anymore. If you give the wasp a bris, it won't sting you anymore.
I don't think you can give wasp a bris. So mihu, however, lishakei revias of dechala, but you should drink a revias of vinegar anyway. Shemegaz, in order to efsher dechuye pursa ad demafkid abese, right? At least it will distract, it will delay your death long enough so that you can tell everybody your last will and testament, right? You get a little bit of time before the wasp finishes you off.
Half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Tana Rabbanan. Our rabbis learned, Lo yishta adam mayim balayla. You're not supposed to drink water at night. V'im shasa damo b'rosho. And if you do, then you're taking your life into your own hands. Because it's dangerous. What's the danger? My sakana, what's the danger? Sakanas shavriri. The danger is the demon shavriri, who gets into the water and causes blindness.
Even nowadays, or this is back in...
So, when it comes to these issues, there's two ways or multiple ways to look at it, right? One way to look at it is they didn't know much about germ theory back then, but they knew that if you had water that was uncovered and things, then you leave it and eventually bad things would grow in it. So potentially they assigned supernatural forces to natural things, phenomena that they didn't understand. Another way of looking at it is no, they had demons and we don't have demons anymore. And so therefore they had to be more careful about these things, these demons that cause them damage and harm.
Is that what the halacha is? If you have an open bottle overnight, you pour it out?
That's exactly why. That's why you don't drink water. If you leave your water overnight, you don't drink it.
If you open without the lid.
Right, so therefore don't leave a bottle of water open, right, because of this, because of the shavriri. Now, v'itzachi, my takante, so what are you supposed to do if you're thirsty? Right, you wake up in the night, you can't drink in the middle of the night because you open the lid and shavriri is there, so what are you supposed to do?
Well, that's all you're allowed to, you just can't leave it open for very long.
It sounds like you shouldn't drink, it says, lo yishta adam mayim b'layla, don't drink at night. Right, so don't.
Oh.
So therefore you're thirsty now, what do you do?
Even if you put the lid on tightly, because it's okay.
So it sounds like, yeah. I mean, I guess a good answer would be like you get a water bottle that you can squeeze the, right? Maybe that's a good answer.
It's like one of those
Gatorade bottles, yeah, exactly.
I just found out that I've kept some drinking bottles right near my bed, and I don't keep them open. Because then they'll spill. And
Right.
Did everything weird happening overnight?
So those are fine, but if you want to get a drink, if you unscrew the top, you're in trouble. So what do you do?
Well, apparently I've gotten into trouble.
Grab a
That's
plastic cap and
It explains a lot.
So here's what it says. If you've got somebody else with you, Lisrei ve'limale tzachina maya, right? So what you should do is, you should... right, you should tell the other person, right, who's there, right. You should wake him up, and you can say, I'm thirsty, because demons don't attack people who are in pairs with groups, right. So therefore, you're safe if you're with somebody else. You say,
not always.
Well, that's
if you put those boards and you're together.
I'm here to read the Gemara. That's all. If you don't like it,
I do like it.
Ve'ilo. Now, what do you do if you don't have some? So if you've got somebody with you, you can wake them up, and then you can open the top, and the shavriri won't bother you because you'll be with somebody else. Okay, it's a good answer, right? Yeah. Other way, right? But what if you're by yourself? Ve'ilo. What are you supposed to do? Then you got to act like somebody's near you, right? So then nikarkosh b'nechtama achatzava, right? What you should do is you should rattle the pot around, the lid around the top, right? Make a lot of noise around it.
Or play you talk to someone.
Right? So that's the same idea, right? You make sure, so the demon thinks, there's multiple people here, right? Because they hear all the noise. Venema ihu linafshe, and he should speak out loud to himself, planya bar planisa, so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, his mom. Amralach imech, your mother always used to say, is dahir mishavriri viriri riri yiri ri. Right? You should definitely worry about this shavriri riri riri yiri ri. And the reason why is because everyone knows that if you say a demon's name and you eliminate one letter at a time from his name, that scares away the demons.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's what you do.
I want to write this down.
That's right.
It's just awesome.
That's it. So that's
Shavriri,
Shavriri, Viriri, Riri, Yerei, and Rei.
Okay, and the letters come off that way, like from.
Yes, from front to back.
It's a tongue twister, that one.
I think, and that's why I'm not as even though we're here in the Brestover Hasidic Stiebel here, right? So you have to ask that there is a widespread custom that people say nachman meuman, right? And that is
They're
the opposite. They're doing the opposite. They're adding a letter at a time in order to bring the koach of Rabbi Nachman into the world.
But one thing about the Chabad and the Yechid, they don't add any letters.
That's right. You just say it, right? It's like, why beat around the bush?
Exactly. And I'm against that whole thing, though.
So there you go. So, okay. Yeah, you're saying, right? So, you just one letter off at a time. There you go.
I thought that there's some, like, when I didn't know what it is, I thought someone Nachman was, like, with the stuttering.
So that's correct, yes. And then you should say that your mother warned you about drinking, right, from this shaviri, bikasi chivori.
If you don't want to listen to your mother, then I can't help you.
New white pottery, right? Because once he's going to hear his name going smaller and smaller, right, then he's going to be a little bit nervous and he'll go away, and that's how you get to the water. Okay, so that's what you do. I don't know practically la halacha whether anybody says that you really need to do that, right? We have the concept now. It doesn't really follow the worry that there are shadim around. Nevertheless, it is practical and that people do not drink water that has been left overnight for a lengthy period of time. Yeah. If you take a sip of water overnight, I'm not sure that people
if you ever refrigerate it,
I never have.
If it's refrigerated,
but I don't know if I'm right.
Would it still be a problem if it's refrigerated?
It does not seem to matter in the Gemara whether it's cold water or warm water or what. Just says, watch out at night. Be careful. Okay. Says the next Mishnah. Also, I would imagine that it's probably less of a problem if you have a light to turn on, because I think that demons like the darkness at night, so probably isn't.
We have a night next to your bed the whole time.
Says the next Mishnah. Ir sheyesh ba'avodas kochavim. Let's say there's a city that has idolatrous festival that's going on in it. V'hayuba chanios mutaros v'she'ena mutaros. And then there were some stores that had decorations on them, right? So you can imagine you have stores. Some stores are decorated for the holiday. Some stores are not decorated for the holiday. Okay, so you have a choice. Where are you going to go shopping? Okay, so then zehaya ma'isa bebeis shan. This actually has how it was in Beit Shan. The Beit Shan, they had a market, and some of the stores they had decorations on them, and some did not.
Beit Shan
is the name of the place. Beit Shan is. I know where that is. I have a friend who is from Beit Shan in Eretz Yisrael. It's up north. It's in the north area. V'amru chachamim, and the chachamim said, "Hamutaros asuros v'she'enan mutaros mutaros." The ones that have the decorations are prohibited from shopping at, and the ones that don't have the decorations are the ones you should shop at. And we'll see in the Gemara why we should avoid the shops that have the Christmas lights. What I see, it's not going to be Christmas lights. It's going to be plants.
Or the place where it has the Halloween decorations.
That's right. So we're going to see why and whether Halloween decorations or Christmas lights would be a problem. We'll see that in a moment. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Lo shanu ela mutaros vered v'hadas. When we're talking about decorations, we're not talking about Christmas lights. We're not talking about Halloween decorations. We're talking about roses and myrtles. The nice smelling decorations. Why? What's the problem? Because when you walk into those shops, you're going to benefit from the decoration, right? Because it smells nice in there. So therefore, benefiting from something that was put up for Avodah Zara, for the sake of Avodah Zara, that's your problem. So if it's just a look of something, aval, mutaros beperos, but if it was just decorated with fruit, so then mutaros wouldn't be a problem. My time, what's the reason? Damar krok, because the pasuk says, Lo yidbak biyadcha me'uma min achirim. You're not allowed to have nothing from that which is prohibited to you should be stuck in your possession. Which means, ne'nehu da'aser. You're not allowed to get any benefit from the Avodah Zara, right? The problem is real benefit, tangible, even smell is a tangible enough benefit to be able to stay away from.
Thanksgiving, you have a lot of fruits.
Fruits is not a problem. Lights are not a problem. Plastic decorations and skeletons are not a problem.
Maybe with an apple, they're not a problem.
Problem is going to be something that smells nice, right? You're going to see decorations of flowers or garlands or roses or those kinds of things. That's where you have your problem. Aval mahan is shari. But we're going to see as far as giving benefit to the Avodah Zara, that is going to be permissible, right? So because you're going into the store and you're buying and using the store, right? And the people, you're basically, when you use the store, you know that these people celebrate whatever holiday it is, and they're going to pay the tax to the Avodah Zara. And so by going shopping in the store, you are providing a benefit to the Avodah Zara. That's not prohibited. For Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with that. That's what the Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says. But Rabbi Yochanan says, no, afilu mutaros beperos nami aser. Even if they have decorations of fruits, it's also going to be prohibited, right? Because we know that they're celebrating the holiday, and that means they're going to be paying the holiday tax and the sales tax that's for the churches, and we don't want to help. We don't want to help that, and we don't use those businesses, because kal v'chomer nen, and for sure somebody who, if you're going to get benefit from something that smells nice, for sure that's prohibited also. So he says mahana lo kol shekain, right? If you're getting benefit, for sure it's also. So then if you're able to cause benefit, for sure that's going to be a prohibition, right? That's even worse. You're helping the Avodah Zara, says Rabbi Yochanan. This is a machlokes between Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Reish Lakish, and Rabbi Yochanan. So Meisvei Rabbi Nassim. Sorry, for Meisvei.
Doing business with the non-Jew, right, or other worshiper. How is it that we're allowed to buy? If we're allowed to buy a church and turn it to a shul, if we're giving the other worshippers business?
Well, I suppose. Well, we're going to see later on, because save that question, because we're going to see later on about buying from non-Jews property. The Gemara is going to discuss that issue.
Well, it's like churches or whatever it is, right?
Churches in specific, but anytime you buy something, land or property from non-Jews. Because don't you have to be worried that the money and the proceeds of the sale are going to help a idolatrous purpose? And we're going to see no, but we'll see that in a moment. Meisvei. That's one question. Rabbi Nosson says, Yom Shavuos Kochavim Manachas Bo Es Hamechas. The day that the idolaters, here's what they used to do, right? The churches... Right, they used to have a tax. Well, see, now this is what's interesting, right? So we'll explain this in a moment, right? But the churches used to set up a tax, and they would say that everybody has to pay this tax. But it wasn't a government tax. Government tax, you have a legal obligation to pay. These were religious taxes, and so they didn't collect them evenly and equivalently from all people. We're going to see that the Jewish people are trying to get out of paying this tax. It wasn't illegal to get out of paying the tax. If it was a government tax, no, you can't pull shtick, right? And you can't get out of paying your taxes. If you're obligated to pay taxes, just because the IRS or the CRA is not going to find you, doesn't mean that it is going to that you're allowed to do it. But when it comes to the idolaters, the churches really weren't the law, but they would impose the tax. So the non-Jews, what they would do is they would tell everybody, "Hey, you know what? There's going to be some days we're going to have a tax-free holiday." This is what they would announce, tax-free holidays. Machriz and Vomrim, they would announce, and they would say as follows. Anybody who takes a garland, and they wear it on their head, and they put the garland on the donkey's head, and they walk around, right, celebrating the idolatrous holiday, well, that person doesn't have to pay tax. But if not, then let's not let him go. He's got to pay tax. Okay, so that's the trick. Now, right, so Yanichlos Mechas. Then he's got to keep paying the tax. Yehudi Shenimtza Sham Ma Yaseh. What's a Jew who lives in that sort of circumstance supposed to do? He's stuck in what they call catch-22. Right, you're stuck either way. Yaniach, if he puts the garland on his head, Nimtza Nen, he's going to be benefiting from the idolatry. He's going to be smelling the fragrant grasses and whatever from the garland. Lo Yaniach. If he's not going to wear the garland, nimtza mehana, then what is he going to do? He's going to be causing benefit to the idolatry because he's going to pay the tax.
It's a lose-lose for him.
It's a lose-lose. So what's he supposed to do? Mikan Amru, from here they said, Hanose v'nosein b'shuksha avodos kochavim. If somebody goes and does business, you have to avoid the situation entirely. Anybody who does business in a non-Jewish marketplace, so then, behema te'aker, if you buy an animal, you should, as we talked about, hamstringing the animal in order to be able to make sure that it can't carry any burdens. Peiros, ksus v'kelim, if he bought produce, garments, or utensils, yir kavu, he should let them rot, be unusable. Ma'os, ukli matachos, if he has money from the deal, or he has metal utensils, yolicham liyamamauch, he should throw them into the Dead Sea, right?
Get rid of them. You can't even toggle it. It's that bad. You can't even toggle it.
But he has to hamstring the animal and get rid of it? or hamstring it and keep it?
I guess it sounds like they're hamstringing it and keeping it, based on the Gemara that comes up. So hang on, if you're wondering, why do they hamstring the animal and keep it? So
why would you want to keep it?
You really don't want to keep it, right? But you can't get much benefit from it.
No.
And we're going to discuss why it is that they didn't kill it or whatever kind of a thing.
So you want to make sure you don't do it again by accident.
So ve'ezehu ikur, what is the concept? What is this hamstringing of the animal? Hamanasha persoseh min arkuva l'mamala. As we said, you cut the hamstring from the lowest part of the leg of the animal. Katani mihos. Now, the point that why we brought all this, and we'll discuss each of these lines in some greater detail. The point that we were bringing is yaniach, right? So nimtza nena. So that katani mihos yaniach nimtza nena lo yaniach nimtza mahana. So we said that he's stuck. He's between a rock and a hard place here. Because if he puts the garland on, so then he's getting benefit, that's prohibited. And if he doesn't put it on, then he's going to pay the tax, in which case he's giving benefit, which seems to be clear that Rabbi Nassan in the Brisa is holding like Rabbi Yochanan, right? That giving benefit is equally prohibited as getting benefit.
So there's no escape route.
This is a question on Reish Lakish.
And there's no escape route.
So there's no escape route. That's what we decided. So therefore you can't go shopping. And therefore they made a rabbinic prohibition that you can't get any benefit from anything that you buy in that marketplace.
But if he's already there,
then he shouldn't go shopping. Go take a walk, go somewhere else. Amar of Misharshia, Bray de Rav Idi. So how's Rabbi Shlokish going to answer this? So Amar of Misharshia, the son of Rav Idi, said, Kasava Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Pligi Rabbanan Aleh Rabbi Nassan. The Rabbi Shlokish must say that you're right. Rabbi Nassan doesn't agree with me. But the Rabbanan must argue with Rabbi Nassan. The fact that Rabbi Nassan holds like Rabbi Yochanan is okay, because the Rabbanan hold like me. And the Rabbanan are the majority. So I hold like the majority, so I'm okay. That's what happens. V'ana damrid k'Rabbanan to pligi alei. Now, if Rabbi Yochanan savar, then Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. He says, lo pligi. There's no argument between Rabbi Nassan and the Chachamim. Rabbi Nassan is stating this opinion that you can't get any benefit, you can't give any benefit. And that's the opinion that everybody holds like. And so therefore, everybody universally holds like me. That's what's going on. So, okay, now, the problem is, Rabbi Yochanan hold that it's universal, nobody argues, velo pligi. V'atanya, we learned a different brisa. This brisa seems to imply a different way. Holichin liyirid shel ovei kochavim, velokhin mehen behema avadim ushvachos batim v'sados ukramim. This was Yehuda's question about buying land and things from non-Jews, right? You're allowed to go to the non-Jewish festivals, right? They had their fairs, and you should buy from them animals and slaves and houses and fields and vineyards. V'kosev umalib be'arkos shalahen. And you should write, and where's the arkos shabahen? It is right. You should write the contracts, and you should also bring the. You should have them certified in non-Jewish court. Right, get yourself a lawyer and make sure that the sale is valid.
And not just that. Also, when it comes to purifying a place that was used for Avodah Zara, like a church.
So purifying is a separate issue. We'll discuss that later on in the Masechta. But this issue is, we're going to see that clearly you're allowed to buy from them. Now, the big issue that we're dealing with at this point is, where's the money going when you buy these things? It's going to the idolater. And what's he going to do with it? He's going to use it to pay idolatrous taxes and things and service idols. So therefore, it should be a problem. Why is it not a problem? You're saving this property from the non-Jew, right? This property was going to be used inappropriately, and you bought it, saving the property. Now we're going to go a step further. Kohen, let's say the guy was a Kohen. So mitami b'chutz la'aretz, so he can go outside of Eretz Yisrael. And we had learned a few days ago that the Chachamim established that outside of Israel, all of the ground is considered contaminated and tameh, so that a Kohen can't go outside of Eretz Yisrael without being considered tameh.
Like it's something or anyone could have been buried there. What's the reason?
That's because the idea is that they were trying to keep everybody inside Eretz Yisrael, right? So they established, and yes, essentially they were concerned that people were buried in all kinds of places, right? Nobody was careful to mark graves outside of Chutz La'aretz. They made the rule, Chutz La'aretz, every place is considered a doubtful graveyard. So therefore, Kohen shouldn't go there. However, they made a loophole. in that decree that if he was going out ladun ula'ar imohem in order to sue them, he's going to sue some non-Jews, or to get involved in some kind of legal dispute with them, so that he can, right? Not only that, but not only can a Kohen go outside of Eretz Yisrael in order to go sue a non-Jew. Why again? We're saving the property from a non-Jew. And that's okay. Therefore, we're going to have leniencies to permit a Jew from going and getting, saving property from the non-Jew for who's going to use it inappropriately. So, but then we said that a Kohen can even go through a graveyard in order to do that. The Gemara says, time out for a second. How can you read this Brisa and mean a graveyard? Because Tuma Doraisa, that is a Torah prohibition. A Kohen can't go into a graveyard. That's a Torah prohibition. And therefore, there's no leniencies there.
If you bury your own mother or father.
Correct. But there's no leniency to go and sue a non-Jew to go through the graveyard. So therefore, that can't be what it means. Ella Beis HaPras D'Rabbanan. We're talking about what's called a Beis HaPras. And a Beis HaPras, there was a body that was buried somewhere in here, and they plowed the field over. And in the process of plowing over the field, they may have dug deep enough to cut the body up and disperse bone fragments all around the field.
But even though you're cutting bone fragments or whatever, isn't that still considered tummy because you're...
That's correct. That's what makes it tummy. But now the fragments have made the field tummy all over the place. So therefore, a Kohen can't go in. Now, the reality is that bodies are buried much deeper than the depth that plows go to, right? Plows go in a few inches. Bodies are usually buried several feet underground. So therefore, it's unlikely that the plow did come in contact and disturb the body. However, rabbinically, they established, nevertheless, to presume that the field is going to be prohibited. Since it's only a rabbinic prohibition, now it makes sense why the rabbis were lenient on their rabbinic prohibition in order to allow the Kohen to get involved with his dispute with the non-Jew. Umetame lilmod Torah. Also, the Kohen, the other leniencies they had with these rules is that a Kohen could leave Eretz Yisrael and become Tameh in order to learn Torah. Ulis velisa isha, and also to get married, right? If you need to get married, you can also leave Eretz Yisrael in order to find a wife.
Wouldn't it be easier if you had the wife come to you because it's current?
Yeah, but it doesn't always work that way. It's always easier if their wife comes to you, right? But it doesn't always work that way. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda says, "A Masai." When is that? Bisman she'in motzi lilmod, right? That's only if you can't stay in Eretz Yisrael and go to yeshiva there. In other words, you can't say I'm going to Chutz La'aretz in order to go to yeshiva, right? When you could stay in Eretz Yisrael and go to yeshiva. Aval, bisman shemotzi lilmod. If you can find a good Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael, eino metame, then you can't leave Eretz Yisrael. So Rabbi Yossi says, no, I disagree with you. Afilu bisman shemotzi lilmod yitame. Even if you could find somebody else to learn from, you should leave Eretz Yisrael if you want to in order to go learn. Why? Lafisha ein adam zocha lilmod mikol, because not everybody can learn from anybody. You can't just go to yeshiva. You got to go to the right yeshiva. So therefore, if there's a yeshiva in Chutz La'aretz that's right for you, go there, right? Whatever the best yeshiva is. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, Maaseh b'Yosef HaKohen, there was a story with Yosef HaKohen who had this issue. Shahalach acharabo litzidon. He followed his Rebbe, did Sidon, which is in Chutz La'aretz, and that was okay because he couldn't just learn from anybody. That was his Rebbe, Lilmod Torah in order to learn Torah. Father Rabbi Yochanan says, Halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Alma pligi. So now, the point is that we quoted the second brisa in order to tell us that you were allowed to do business with a non-Jew, right? Which means that you're causing benefit to the non-Jew by going and buying and grabbing whatever he needs, right? So therefore, clearly, there's an argument here. Rabbi Nassim says you cannot cause benefit to the non-Jew, and this brisa, which seems to imply that you can do business with a non-Jew. So Rabbi Yochanan will say, Liolam lo pligi. It's not a contradiction. They're really not arguing with each other, these two brises. Velo kash, it's not a contradiction. Kan belokech min atager de shakli michsa mine. Kan belokech mi balabayas de lo shakli michsa mine. Depends who you're buying from, right? If you're buying from a professional reseller, so the resellers pay tax. So therefore, you can't do business with a non-Jewish reseller because he's going to pay the tax to the non-Jewish priests. Because priests know that he sells, so that's who they go to collect their taxes from. They don't really collect the taxes from the homeowners. So therefore, the homeowners, if you do a sale directly, right? If you your real estate, right? If you go direct, right, buyer and seller, do the deal directly, and there's no real estate agent in between, so then there's no tax. They don't have to pay. They don't have to pay the Avodah Zara tax. That's the circumstance where the Brisa says it's okay to do business with them because there's no Avodah Zara tax. And as far as leaving Eretz Yisrael in order to go, that we said is okay because you're getting and saving the property from the non-Jew. But Rabbi Nosson, it's held, according to Rabbi Yochanan, universally held that if you do have to pay the tax, it would be prohibited to do business with them. Okay, Amar Mar. Now let's go back over some of the things that we said in these two brises. The first one is behema te'aker, right? You're supposed to hamstring this animal. What gives you the right to do that? Aren't you hurting the animal, right? You're not going to cause pain and distress to the animal. So Amar Abaye says, Amar Rachmana es susehem te'aker. Abaye says, the pasuk tells us that when you get into Eretz Yisrael and Sefer Yeshua, you should, when you attack the non-Jewish armies, you should hamstring their animals. Why? For purpose, right? You're preventing the non-Jews from being able to use this animal for war. And so therefore you are allowed to hamstring them. So whereas you're not allowed to cause animals pain and suffering, that's for no reason. But if there's a reason, like there is here, in order to prevent them from being used after you have purchased something that you're not allowed to for Avodah Zara, so then you'd be allowed to hamstring the animal. Amar Mar. Now, let's talk about this hamstringing business. We said ikor, was hamstringing. So Amar Mar said, Ve'ezehu ikor, what is the definition of ikor? We said it's minasher parsosei min arkuva lamata, it is cutting the hamstring from the bottom joint. Or a minhi, but we have a contradiction. Because it says, Ein makdishin ve'ein machrimin ve'ein marichin bizman hazeh. We're not supposed to declare something hektish, or a cherem, or declare its erech vow in modern times. Because there's no Beis HaMikdash. So you can't.
What's cherem?
Cherem is a vow to remove yourself from getting any benefit from something, and which essentially declares something hektish. It has the same effect as declaring something hektish. So you can't do that anymore, right? You can't declare that anymore, right? And if you do, vim hektish, if you do it, v'hechriv v'erich, and you do any of these, behema tiaker. So you should uproot the animal. We are going to presume we already know what that means, right? Peiros ksus v'kelim yirkevu. Then if it's produce or clothing or utensils, so they should rot. We're on Yud Gimel and Beis. Ma'os ukli matchos. If it's money or metal utensils, yolichim liyam hamelch. Then you throw them into the Red Sea, to the Dead Sea. Ve'ezuhi ikur, what does it mean to uproot? Here it says, Noel delis bifanao vehi mesa. You lock it in a room and let it starve to death. So that's very different. That's not hamstringing it. That's like putting it and letting it starve to death. By itself. Sorry?
Talking about the animal?
Yes.
Is that cruelty?
Oh, so we had the same question. The cruelty we weren't worried about.
Specifically indoors.
So that it won't be able to get around and find something to eat. Right?
Saying the cruelty what?
We said the cruelty didn't bother us because for purpose, in order to prevent people from doing the Avera of using this animal, we were okay with the cruelty, right? So we said we found a pasuk that indicated that it was acceptable under these circumstances. For no reason, you can't do it. But if it's for a specific purpose, it would be okay. So, Amar Abaye says it's different here, right? There's a different rule by Avodah Zara and Hektish. Why? Shani Hasam Mishum Bizayon Kodshim. So the answer is, having this animal, if you just hamstrung it, and you let the animal just wander around in the field all the rest of this time, so then everybody would see, here's this injured animal that belonged to Hektish. It's a disgrace to Hektish to have such a thing. So therefore we don't want this animal lying around like this. So therefore we put an end to the animal right away. So mishchat. So why don't you just shecht it? Right? Why are we putting it in a room and letting it starve to death? Why don't you shecht it? So the answer is also de takala. People are going to mess up. They're going to think it's a shechted animal, and they may eat it. So therefore, you don't want to shecht it. Veli shavei gistera. So why don't you just chop the animal in half? Right? Basically, kill it without shlita. So Amar Abaye says, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, V'nitat stemetz mizbechosam. You're supposed to destroy their altars. Lo tasun kein laHashem Elokeichem, but you're not going to do that to things that belong to Hashem. Wanton destruction of something that is hektish is prohibited. So you can't just kill it, actively. Shchita is not an active killing
You
necessarily.
have to let it die.
So therefore, you have to let it die because you can't actively kill it.
Ordinarily, cruelty is not okay, but here it's kind
You
of...
got no choice, right? Here you're kind of stuck.
Wow.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Rava says no. You know why? The reason why you can't chop this animal in half and just kill it is because it looks like you are blemishing a holy animal. Well, one second. Nira, what does it mean it looks like it? Mumalyo, you're cutting it in half. That's for sure a blemish. You can't take something that's hektish and actively put a blemish on it. That's a prohibition in the Torah, to take an animal that is declared hektish and put a blemish on it. So therefore it's a problem. So the answer is no. That prohibition only applied when there was a Beis Hamikdash, because you'd be bringing it as a sacrifice. So you can't put a blemish on it because that would eliminate it from being brought as a sacrifice. Now there's no Beis Hamikdash, right? Because you could bring it as a sacrifice. Hashta, but now it's not going to get sacrificed anyway. Leis lanba. We don't have a prohibition against putting a blemish, so that's not the issue. So therefore, the issue is that it looks like you're putting a blemish. It's a problem of, again, it seems like you're doing something that's bad. A rabbinic, almost like it's a rabbinic prohibition against doing something that looks bad. Okay, but why shouldn't it be as bad as putting a blemish on an animal that already has a blemish? We know that during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, if an animal had a blemish, you can't put a second blemish on it, because that's disrespectful to it. You can't do that. You can't put a second blemish on it. So I understand this animal, which had no blemishes on it, can't be brought because there's no Beis Hamikdash now. That's one blemish. That's going to keep it from being brought. But I shouldn't be allowed to put a second blemish on it and cut it in half. The afagav de l'chazi la'krava, also, even though I can't bring it as a sacrifice, it should still be prohibited to put a second blemish on it. The answer is, during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, if an animal had a blemish, it could still be sold and used to use the money for the Beis Hamikdash. But that's not the case here. This is no Beis Hamikdash. You can't use the money, you can't use the animal, so therefore there's no prohibition against that.
If you check the animal and has blemish, it's not kosher. Why is it
not only, no, it depends on the blemish, right? You can't shecht an animal that has a treifa blemish, right? But not all blemishes are treifa blemishes, right? If the animal has a cataract, right? So it's still kosher to eat, but it is prohibited from being used as a korban. They don't all have to, a mum is not necessarily a significant blemish that makes something treif. Okay. Ashkechei Rabbi Yonah Rabbi Eloi. So Rabbi Yonah found Rabbi Eloi, Deka a pischa de Tzor. He was standing by the entrance to the city of Tzor. Amar le. He said, Ktani behema te'aker. He says, we know that if somebody goes into this marketplace, he's not allowed to benefit from the animal that he buys. So they suggested that you're going to hamstring the animal. Okay, fine. Eved my. What about a slave? Let's say he buys a slave there. So Eved Yisrael lo kami baili. I'm not asking about if he bought a Jewish guy as a slave. Because that for sure you wouldn't have to blemish him. That's for sure, because a Jewish guy can't become for Avodah Zara. It doesn't make sense. I'm asking if he buys a non-Jewish slave. He says, what's your question? I don't understand. Tanya, we have a brisa that answers that. If somebody is a non-Jew, right, or if somebody is somebody who raises small animals in Eretz Yisrael, lo ma'alin v'lo maridin. If they fall in a pit, you're not allowed to push them into the pit in order to kill them. But you are also under no obligation to rescue them from a pit either. Why? Because these are people that are criminals, and therefore they're presumed to be bad people, and therefore you're under no obligation to rescue them, right?
Do you hear more about this in Bava Metzia?
We actually did. I remember we did it together. Must have been Baba Basra, because I thought we did it together, where we had a circumstance where because the person was raising small animals, because the animals they graze on other people's property. And so people who are raising these animals allow their animals to graze anywhere, and they don't care. So that is a problem.
Yeah, we did learn this.
Now, what we do see is that while you're not allowed to cause damage to the non-Jew. So therefore, so the question is, do I have to cause some kind of injury to the non-Jew? The answer is no, you can't. You don't cause an injury to the non-Jew. You don't have to save him or something, but you can't cause him an injury. Therefore, also you don't cause an injury in these circumstances as well. Okay, Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zara. So Rabbi Yirmiyah says to Rabbi Zara, Ktani, we learned, Lokchin mehen behema avodim shvachos. So it says that we're supposed to buy from non-Jews right? If we can save property for them, it's a good idea, right? We said that it was under the condition that we were not buying it through an agent. We're buying it directly from the person who was selling it, fine, okay? But you're buying animals, you're buying servants from the person. So, Eved Yisrael, O Dilma Afilu Eved Kochavim. When we say it's a mitzvah to buy a slave from a non-Jew, are we talking about saving a Jewish person or even a non-Jew? Some are lay,
Stop.
Oh, that's going to be the question. Some are lay, mistabra Eved Yisrael. Does it make sense? It's a Jewish slave. Why? If it's a non-Jewish slave, as Yudah says, l'maymi boyle. What's the mitzvah of doing that? There's no mitzvah of saving a non-Jew. He's a non-Jew working for a non-Jew. Why would saving? So Kiyasa Rabin, so when Rabin came from Eretz Yisrael, he said, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, he said the name of Rish Lakish, that Afil Eved Ove Kochavim, no, it's even a non-Jewish slave. Why? Because when you own a non-Jewish slave, he's chayav in some mitzvos.
But he might be still worshiping the stars or by the Zara.
Well, that's when you have to bring him in and you teach him, right? Therefore you are helping him. So that's an interesting sort of an explanation, right? You have to be able to save this non-Jewish slave, bring him into your house so he can learn the proper way to act. So that's still your obligation, despite the fact that he isn't Jewish. Amar Ravashi says, no, it has nothing to do with rescuing his character. It's rather as atu behema. So he says, well, then you could ask the question, why does he have to buy the animal? He's not trying to teach the animal proper character and bring it under the Shechina. So that's not why he's buying any of these things from the non-Jew at all. The reason why he's buying all these things from the non-Jew is because he's reducing the non-Jew's wealth. That's the idea, is reducing his power and his wealth by purchasing these things. That's why he has to buy their animals, buy their fields, buy their buildings, buy their slaves, buy whatever it is so that they have less possessions, and that ultimately is better for the world. That's what he is. Rabbi Yaakov Zovin Sandala. So Rabbi Yaakov bought some sandals. He was in a non-Jewish marketplace. He bought some sandals. Rabbi Yirmiyah Zovan Pita. Rabbi Yirmiyah bought some bread. Okay? Each one said to the other one, Yasma, orphan, meaning somebody who's without learning. Would your teacher have allowed you to purchase something here in this non-Jewish marketplace? Right? Clearly presuming that he paid a tax.
And it's not kosher.
Well, it's not kosher. Wasn't their issue. The issue was buying in the marketplace, according to Rabbi Yochanan, where you're providing tax to the non-Jewish to the church,
which could go towards Avodah Zara.
So Amar le'idach, the other one answered, Yatma, you're an orphan. Avad Rabcha Hachi, how would your Rebbe have allowed you to purchase this here? So Vetarvaihu mi balabayis zovan, but both of them were okay because they bought it directly from the person the owner, right? They didn't buy it through a reseller. But the reason why they insulted each other is they presumed, it wasn't Dan Lekavschus, that they each one went to a store and bought it from a reseller. And they thought they were paying the tax, but they weren't. So they both did it okay, but they assumed they were not. Dam Rabbi Abba braid to Rabbi Chia.
Would that still be like a Ayin Hara? Or?
It's not an Ayin Hara, right? It sounds like it's... Well, so that's the issue. I guess that's fair. Is it a Maris Ayin? I suppose it isn't a Maris Ayin if, as we had talked about before, going from a place of Avodah Zara, if you could have interpreted it as something that they had come from someplace else other than the Avodah Zara we said was permissible. So they could have interpreted it a different way. Why each of them weren't Dan Lekavschus of their friend? That's a good question, right? They could have been Dan Lekavschus on it, but in the end, they both didn't do the wrong thing. They just suspected each other of doing the wrong thing. Damar Rabbi Abba braid to Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Abba said in Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Lo shana ela below kech mina teger. The only problem with the paying the tax is if you buy it from the reseller. Deshakli michsa, meaning because he has to pay taxes. But if you buy it direct from the other owner, so they don't take tax from him, the non-Jewish don't take the taxes, mutter, then it's okay. Rabbi Abba braid Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said the name, Rabbi Abba braid, the son of Rabbi Chia bar Abba said, Il mole haya Rabbi Yochanan hazimna be'asra, right now Rabbi Yochanan, if Rabbi Yochanan lived at this time, the kashakli michsa afilu bayis. Nowadays, that the non-Jews are collecting taxes, the Avodah Zara are collecting their tax, even from the regular people, the regular owners, hava aser. He would say that it would be aser to buy even from the regular owners. El inhu heichuzavin b'balabayis she'enu kavua zovon. He says, however, that it was those Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yirmiyah, right? How did they buy it? That's the question. Is how did they buy it? So the answer is they bought it from a temporary seller, right? This guy just showed up and said, "Hey, who wants to buy my sandals?" He wasn't like a regular balabais who was selling his goods. So even in that circumstance, the
temporary seller could be an issue as well, couldn't it?
Temporary seller, they would never collect the taxes from, right? A guy showed up to the marketplace and said, I think I'm selling something today. They wouldn't collect the taxes from. Even though they were collecting from other balabat, but the balabatim, they were not collecting from individuals on a circumstance by circumstance basis. Okay, let's do the next Mishnah. Try to get to Yud Daled Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Elu dvar masurim limkor lo'ovid kochavim. These are the things you cannot sell to a non-Jew because they were commonly used in idolatrous services. Some of them we're not going to translate because the Gemara is going to want to know what they are. It's Deroblin and Benos Shuach, right? It's Deroblin, we'll see what that is.
Isn't it the name of one of the cities in Iran that they bombed?
That's a good question.
It sounds like
Benos Shuach. And Petotros, right? Also Petotros, do we translate Petotros? And Livona, translate Petotros. The Gemara is going to explain what that is. And Livona and frankincense. It's a spice. Vertarnagol halavan and a white.
Myrrh and frankincense.
Right? So now tarnagol halavan and a white chicken. Right? If you get or white rooster or tarnagol halavan, a white rooster. Right? Because they were used for idolatrous sacrifices. Rabbi Yehuda says, Muterlim kol lo tarnagol lavan bein ha-tarnagolin. Right? You can sell, if the guy wants to buy a case of chickens, you can put a white chicken in there. It's not a problem that you can't ever sell him a white chicken. Right. If he asks specifically for a white chicken, you know he's doing it for idolatrous purposes. If he's ordering a dozen chickens, then it doesn't matter. You can put whatever colored chicken you want in there. Right? That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Ubizmanshu bifnei atzmo. Right? Now, let's say the guy wants to buy just this one chicken. Okay? And it's white. So kotea es etzba'o umochro. Cut off the chicken's toe. Right, and then sell it because lefi shein makrivin chaser lavodos kachavim. They can't. The non-Jews don't use a chicken that's missing a limb, right, for their sacrifice. So they can still buy it for a barbecue if that's what they're buying it for. Ushar kol dvarim satman muter uperushan aser. And all of these other things, any other thing that we're talking about that we didn't listen to the Mishnah, if they're just buying it and they don't say it that they're using it for anything problematic, so then you can sell it to them. But if they explain, say we want to use this for our holiday, then you can't sell it. Rabbi says, Af dekel tov, right? Even a good date tree, the chatzov, also in kurlov dekofim, and also a chatzov, right? You are not allowed to. They could still use them for Avodah Zara. You're not allowed to sell them as well. Okay, so we'll just go until two dots quickly for just a little bit longer, so we get onto the page. Yud Daled Amud Aleph. My Itzderoblin. What is Itzderoblin? So we say it is a tornisa. It's a tornisa tree. It's a type of tree. It's a tornisa tree.
But what is tornisa?
I don't know.
Okay.
So so we'll see in a moment, right? It's a type of cedar tree. That's all we know. Tornisa is a type of cedar tree. Or minu, but we have a contradiction to that. Hosifu alehen, they added on to these trees that you can't use on Shemitah year. An alexin, right? Is an ilex tree, which is I think holly. I think I was looking it up. I think it's holly, but the berries are poisonous on the holly tree anyway. It's Deroblin and mochasin. Ubenos shuach, all of these types of trees. Now, it's Deroblin Toranisa. If you think an it's Deroblin is a Toranisa, so Toranisa mi isa b'shvius. There couldn't be any prohibition of using a Toranisa tree during Shemitah year. Why? Because zehaklal, here's the rule. Kol sheyesh lo iker, yesh lo shvius. V'kol she'ein lo iker, ein lo shvius. If the tree has a root, a permanent root that stays underground through the winter, then that's a tree that's prohibited for use on Shemitah. A Toranisa, we know, does not have a permanent root. The roots refresh annually, I guess like banana trees or those kinds of trees, and more like a plant than it is a tree, and so therefore it is not considered to be a violation of Shemitah. So if you're going to tell me that an Itzderoblin is a Toranisa tree, then we know a Toranisa tree isn't prohibited on Shemitah, and we know an Itzderoblin is. So how could they be the same thing? El Amar Rav Safar says, Peri da Arza, it's the fruit of a cedar tree. V'chein ki also Rabin Amar Rabbi Lazar Peri da Arza. And so when Rabin came from Eretz Yisrael, he said, that is the fruit of the cedar tree. That is what this itzaroblim are, which are acorns. I think either acorns or probably acorns, kind of a thing that they had. Okay, that's a place for us to stop.
Okay,